That's better. You beautiful lot. My name's Jason. This is my 80's podcast. You put the boom boom into my heart. You beautiful lot. My name's Jason. This is my 80's podcast. You put the boom boom into my heart. Oh yeah. Right. So this is my second part of my chat with Keith from TikTok. Absolute. This is just amazing. So I did a 10-10 quiz with him, and then we carried on chatting. So I got another part of my podcast with Keith talking about everything 80s, about growing up in the 80s, especially the Winking. Is it the Winkles pub he worked in? Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So this is me and Keith talking about everything 80s, from movies to school to favourite groups. It was absolutely brilliant. So please take a look and listen at this. Down. Right, so what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to go off. We're going to talk about, I've got some questions, and we're going to have a chat about you growing up in the 80s, what the 80s meant to you. So I've got first question is from Karen. So Mama Bear from TikTok. She wanted me to ask you a question. Which 80s pop star would you have wanted to be in the 80s?
Well, so in 1981, there was a girl at school called Sarah Arnold who I loved and really loved to see. And she loved the man. So I used to live in a council estate called Winkleberry. and
That's a brilliant
no word of a lie. And I used to work in the Winkle pub. So it was a real rough pub on my estate. Anyway, so I walked across Winkleberry dressed as Adamant because she fancied Adamant.
Because she wanted to.
My friend's mum dressed me all up with this happy waistcoat, and I had the white stripe, and I had all the hair. I had a wig on. I walked across Winkleberry, which is a real rough.
Not even getting beat up.
Not even getting beat up. Luckily, because my brother used to be one of the hardest in the team.
There you go.
I never got picked on really. Which is, anyway, that's another story. And I knocked on her door. And I said, it's me, Keith. It's like me, Leclerc sort of thing. And I said, would you go out at me? She just kind of said no and shut the door. So I gutted.
All that effing should have just threw the Adamant wig at her.
I felt like kicking the door in, but I was not quick enough.
Adamant.
You know what? She's amazing, and we're not great friends now, but we all still keep in touch, even after all these years. So
that's really good, though, isn't it?
Many school reunions. So that was the one I kind of wanted to be.
Oh shit! See, most women. This is what we were talking about. I was talking about. It wasn't Adamant, but I was talking about on some of my podcasts is about how. All I remember years ago in the 80s. I mean, I'm going a bit deep, but it's going to be quite funny. But and I remember talking about Boy George, and I always remember.
Yeah.
For me, I always feel like it was the fact that he was gay that bothered people then. It wasn't because when you had people like Adamant that wore more makeup than Boy George ever did, and even some of the other 80s stars, didn't they? They used to wear all the eyeliner and all that.
The new romantics.
Absolutely.
The new romantics used to wear it also. They were big into the eyeliner.
Yeah, and I always find that really bizarre when I always remember that vile Mary Whitehouse when she used to be on the telly and she'd sit there and condemn him and sit there and say, "Oh, look at the state." And I just think that's been going on before him. There was even in the 70s, the 70s rock stars were wearing all that big hair and big makeup.
Mark Bolan and stuff like that. They've all had the eyeliners and the makeup on.
Exactly, and that used to
it was new.
And as a kid, that used to just blow my mind. So you just think to myself, why is that bothering them? But I knew why it bothered them, but at the time I didn't.
I think it was just more with Boy George. I don't think it was more for me.
He didn't care, did it?
It wasn't about him being gay. It was more about, is it a man or a woman?
Yeah.
Because at the time, it felt really weird, and I think because of his voice. And it was the same for Alison Moyet as well.
Because of her voice.
She was
yeah.
I mean,
I remember my uncle watching Boy George, and it was Victims video. And and my mum's brother wasn't that much older than me because she'd got that younger thinger. And I always remember him sitting there going, "She's lovely," and I'm thinking, even I effing know that that's not a she. Weren't sure when he first come out, but I knew eventually because I'd been told. And he's going, look at her, and I think, oh my God. I say to him, do you know it's not a man? But that even he was convinced, like you said, they weren't sure whether it was a man and a woman, wasn't there? But until you know what I mean? But I always think Boy George is just iconic for me. He just, an amazing, he didn't give a sugar, did he? He didn't give a shit, to be fair, at all.
But I think a lot of the bigger stars then kind of didn't, because I think for me then they were quite big stars.
Yeah.
Although you've got pop stars now, they were, you know, you had Adamant, you had Duran Duran, Boy George, these people that were quite iconic, and they still are iconic. Even people like Mark Holman and even David Bowie and stuff, although he's been going for a long time, but they were still around in the 80s, and people know of them now.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I do a music quiz every Wednesday on TikTok. And
I'm going to have to come on your music quiz on a Wednesday.
Every week, people are like, can we do an 80s next week?
Yeah.
I don't want to do 80s all the time. I mean, I've done 2 or 3. You know,
that's the thing, isn't it? And I think with for the 80s, I always found with the 80s, it's probably the one decade that everybody wants, and it always comes back, and it's the one decade. I mean, I was born in the 70s, but I grew up in the 80s, so that's why I'm obsessed with the 80s. I remember the 70s when I was younger, but my mum didn't know I was gay when I was prancing about to the Nolan Sisters in the 1970s. He's just beyond me. You know what I mean? But I remember all that, but I just think for me, the 80s, and I always found with the 80s, especially artists, every artist in the 80s wanted to be unique. They wanted to be different.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of them now, I mean, I'm not condemning them now, but they're all very similar, aren't they? And you hear one sound.
You got the girls. I mean, some of the younger girls that sing now, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Ariana Grande, she sounds different, but a lot of the others,
they sound the same.
They are very much the same.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, who is that? You know, you've got a couple, obviously, that are quite different.
I mean, you could just listen and not have a clue who that was. Whereas I always think and I think with the 80s as well, I think with the groups as well, is they were actually friends, weren't they? So they all grew up with each other. Like Wham grew up together. Duran did. Whereas I think as you went on to the other decade, I think they were just a lot made, weren't they? I always think.
Well, you know, let's be honest, since sort of like pop stars and all that, they are manufactured. A lot more manufactured. But yeah, as you say, they were friends growing up at school. You got your family, you got your 5-star, obviously. Big fan as you are.
I went from Wham to 5-star. It's like I always remember when Wham split up, and it was like, oh my God, what's going to happen in life? And as soon as 5-star come out, it was like I can remember my mum going, what happened to Wham? I went, I still like them, but they're not doing anything anymore at the minute. Yeah. I mean, George did, so I went straight on to 5-star, and I just honestly, I'm going to do a podcast soon with my 3 sisters, and they will tell you that I used to, especially my younger one. I mean, she's 40 now, so she was quite young in the 80s, but we used to get that poor girl dancing. I mean, she was always at the back. I had to be at the front because I didn't want to be at the back. Exactly. I was upset. And, you know, and they all, even now, my sister said, when that 5-star comes on, I could still do that dance. I could, she said, because you used to get us all there doing that. Yeah. I loved it. I just love all that.
The thing was, say, I used to do that. Oh my God, I used to work full time in the Winkle pub, right? And I used to go out with a girl there called Karen, and she used to go out with a group of girls, and they'd come in the pub. In the Winkle pub, a rough.
And you were doing 5-star.
And we used to, when it used to come on the jukebox, we used to be the girls loved 5-star as well.
Yeah.
We used to like be in the middle of the pub doing a routine for whichever one. It's like,
5-star.
It blows my mind. Why was I not beat up then?
Well, I was a bit like that, because I came from quite a rough area of Braunton where I live, and I always think now it's like, and I didn't. I mean, growing, I think you always know, but I didn't know. I had no idea what a puff meant until I used to get older. And my mum was brilliant though, because my mum used to turn around to him and goes, "Do you know what one of them is?" Yeah, it's a bloke that
We
likes
take
another
the
bloke. He's sweating. And I think it's really bizarre because I was talking to a friend of mine that I've not seen for ages, and he used to grow up in Bronx, the rough area, and he said we all knew, but none of us really cared, and you was one of us, so we didn't give a flying.
Yeah.
I think they probably knew more than I did. To be fair, I ain't got a clue until I got a bit older.
You know what? Like, I mean, in the pub they used to call me Queenie. You know, I was 18, but you know, I think it's like even in the pub I was like taking girls home and stuff from like the local ladies.
The local ones that are not. But yeah, and that's it. And that I always think. I always say to people, I'm so glad things have changed now. But for me, the 80s were. I'd love to go back to. I keep saying this all the time. I probably miss technology more than anything else if I had to go back. But I'd take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I've got another question. So this.
Go on then. Go on.
This question is off Kazi from TikTok. It's the lovely Kazi. Okay. So she wants me to ask you, did you have a favourite toy in the 80s? And if so, what was it? And why? And don't say vibrator.
No. Although I was in my teens, I mean, I was born in 68.
You were still a bit younger then.
So I was still a bit younger. It wasn't a toy as such. I loved games. So I loved, like, my favourite was Mousetrap. I loved Mousetrap. Absolutely, that was my favourite. I had a whole wall of games.
Yeah. Keith, I'm just going to talk about Mousetrap for 1 second. I was really bitter because my mum would never get me Mousetrap because all she kept saying was that I would play with it once and never touch it again because it just went round and that was it. And that and Mr. Froster. I was never more bitter with a woman that. No, I weren't. She said you'll get ice headache. Just let me get ice headache.
Yeah. But I wasn't allowed. I was not allowed Mr. Frosty or Scare Electric.
Oh, I had a Scare Electric.
No, I wasn't allowed
just to make you more bitter, I had a Scare Electric. I just didn't have like, she wouldn't let me do it. And there was loads of things. I had Buckaroo as well.
Yes, and Buckaroo, Punk. I always wanted Downfall. I always wanted Downfall, but for some reason I never got that. But then we had a lot of obscure ones, which were really good ones. One was called Creature Castle.
I remember.
You know, Creature Castle? And then we also had Ghost Train. I loved Ghost Train. If you ever remember that one.
I remember. You remember Perfection? We used to have a game called Perfection.
Is that right?
No. Yeah. And you'd have things. Yes, and they'd all be in. No, they'd all be out, and you'd have like the timer, and you just have to put all the. Yeah, if you don't get them all in, and then you have to take the. I mean, I don't suffer from anxiety, but that used to stress the hell out of me when I was a kid. And you get and I used to say it's a fix because you get the last one in, and just before you put it in, the whole lot would just shoot up.
I think that's what like Buckaroo was like that though, wasn't it?
Yes.
Because you think, God, you know.
And I used to have that one called Jaws. Did you ever have? Earlier. But that used to have the big mouth, didn't it? And you used to have to hook the stuff up.
Yeah. But the other one I really liked was one called Spinning Tops or Battling Tops.
I've heard of that. I never had one.
It was like I think it was like a circle, and you used to have like little kind of like tone things with a bit of spin around, and you could pull them, and then they go into the middle.
And used to bang each other.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I used to love that. An Operation. I used to love Operation, but that used to scare the life. That's what you jump, didn't it? More than anything else.
But no, my favourite was definitely Mousetrap. Always Mousetrap. So
see, I always want. Was it as good as what I thought it was?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was so much. We really missed out.
Oh, damn her. Well, I've got another question. So here's another question. Right. If you could go back to the 80s for one item, what would you bring back and why? If you could go back if someone said you can go back to the 80s and bring an item back from the 80s, what would you bring back and why? See, that I was thinking about this as well myself.
Oh, one item. Oh gosh,
I can't. I think I'd want to bring loads back.
Oh well, so yeah, I know what I would go back. Right. So growing up in school, I wasn't brilliant at school. I was okay at school.
I was like that.
I was like school captain. I was a team captain. I was the proper jock. But I wasn't very clever, really. But I had a pencil case that went through my school years with me.
Oh.
And I hope no one from the school adjudication exams listen to it.
He's going to listen.
I used to write all of the answers I could think of that may be on this pencil case. People used to just think it was a pencil case.
Pencil case. Why did I think of that?
So it was a very sort of yellowy, mustardy colour case, and I used to just put whatever answers, especially if it was physics, and I passed my O-level physics because of that.
Well done.
So I think I would bring that up because that kind of helped me pass my
O-levels. That's a really good one, actually.
I used to wipe it clean.
And then rewriting it.
Rewrite stuff on there. So I was a proper teacher.
I don't care what you say. You probably weren't clever. You were very clever at school.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even think of that. That's
no
brilliant.
one ever thought of looking at it because it was just like
because it's your pencil case, isn't it?
Yeah, lots of scribbles.
Oh, see, I could have got better exams if I'd have done that.
And I used to also copy Claire Warwick. I used to make sure I her in the exam.
Do you know what?
She was amazing. She was so clever.
Well, I can remember being at school, the girl next to me, and I'm sure they thought I got some sort of twitch because I was constantly going like that with my neck to look at her. So and in the end, he said, "I've got a bit of a twitch in my neck," and they believe. Well, I don't think she believed me, but that's right. So another question I've got for you:
Go on.
Can you remember where you were when Live Aid was on in 1985?
Well, I can't remember exactly.
Please don't say in prison, because I feel really awkward.
No. You know I've been in prison, right?
No, you've not.
I was in prison for 7 years.
Well, sure.
Yeah, I was in prison for 7 years. I ran the healthcare. I worked for the NHS and worked in healthcare. So
you are. I have to be honest. I've been there for 26 years. Absolutely, I've been there for 26 years.
Yeah. So I ran the healthcare into prison. Anyway, I was homeless. If I'm being honest, if I remember rightly, so I was homeless. I was kicked out at 16. So I don't know where I was.
You know what, Jay? Jason? Why did you ask that question?
You know what? Again, Jay, I wouldn't have said anything if I didn't want to say it.
Then again, what you got to remember, at least now, they're learning curves, aren't they? I always think.
Things like that. No idea. Yeah, I grew up so quickly.
Yeah.
So quickly,
I think I can remember. All I remember is wanting to go and watch it and no one would take me.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. But the thing is with Live Aid and things like that. I mean, it's like I said, not kicked out of her. I always find that really cruel. I always think I always find, was that from obviously I find that as parents because I know people now that have been like that, and it blows, especially like just because they're either different or gay, and it just when I hear that and it blows my mind because I just think to myself, that is your child. I don't give a sugar whether you know what I mean. That's your child. It just blows my mind. I'm going to another question now because I feel really awkward now. I've said that.
Honestly, do not feel. I don't. It's nothing I don't hide. It's just, if people ask me, I'll tell them.
Yeah. I'm like that. I always think if you ask me, I will tell you.
Yeah, and like I said, if I didn't want to answer it, I would have made something up.
Right. The next question then, swiftly on. Do you have an 80s go-to song, and if so, what is it and why?
Well, it's not so much an 80s song; it's an 80s group, which is 5 Star.
Is it? Yay!
Yeah, it's 5 Star. Definitely 5 Star. I mean, obviously, I've got lots of playlists on my Spotify. 5 Star because it just brings back so many memories for me.
They are. Do you know? For me, with 5 Star as well, it's like. When I hear that, even now, I mean, I was watching some stuff on the internet of like some of the old stuff, and there's a bloke on TikTok that does a lot of 5-star videos.
Yes. Yeah.
And when I watch them, and I think for me, it made me. Obviously, I love the Wham stuff, and I was a bit younger, but the 5-star I was a little bit older. And they just made me. I mean, I've just bought I've got vinyl, 5-star vinyl I've bought recently because I lost all mine when I left home. My mum just threw it. I don't know why she did. And I always think with Five Star, it was just, they made me feel happy. I always say that to you, that, and they were just happy songs. Well, even like, I mean, I have to be honest. Do you have a favourite Five Star song? Now I'm gonna.
Yeah, Ain't What You Do.
Oh, I love that. That's
I love that album though. That's Read Between the Lines or Between the Lines.
Yeah, I do, because I
that
love
album for me is the Dog Bollock.
It was the whole album, because was that the one with Hard Race on it?
Hard Race, and because
I always wanted that to be a anthem to a like rocker. Because that's what it reminds me of, that sort of. I love that. That is amazing.
That's the best one.
They're all brilliant albums, but Five Star.
I remember I went to the concert. That was the first concert I ever went to. Was Five Star, and it was the sponsored by Funky or something.
Was it the crunchy one?
Yeah, it was the Funky tour. And I just remember them singing that song, and the way they were so good, weren't they? They were so coordinated, but the way they were moving back the stage. And my brother and his girlfriend were sat there like that.
And you were like going mental.
And I was like going for it. Yeah, I was going for it. So it's brilliant, you know. It's like the first one or whatever. So.
I'd have wanted to be on the stage with. Well, it's really bizarre, because I've just watched a video of Denise Pearson from Five Star going around their old house that they've just someone's.
Yeah.
And that was that was really it was really fascinating to listen to her as well talking about Five Star.
I didn't live that far from Stonethorpe, Virginia Waters, and some of the time I used to have to drive past there, supposed to work in Camberley in Surrey. So I could sometimes drive past it.
Right.
Always would try and look, you know.
Try and see someone. Stand there banging on the front door.
Yeah. But no, for Five Star, but then there's so many other 80s stuff that I just love, you know, Human League. I love all the Human League New Romantic stuff. I love
that's brilliant.
Yazoo, Duran Duran, there's not many 80s stuff that I don't really like.
The song that I love, although I could never choose for 80s, but I always remember hearing Yazoo for the first time and just hearing Alison Moyet's voice and thinking, wow, because that song's very, even though, because it's early 80s as well, but it's got that techno stuff in that we seem to hear a bit more as it got on in the 80s, wasn't it? And do you know what always blows my mind, Keith? Always blows my mind is the fact that Ride on Time is a 1989 song, because that feels like a 90s song to me.
Yeah, definitely.
But you know what I mean?
80s,
yeah.
For me, though, I don't know about you, Jay, but for me, when I talk about the 80s, I kind of forget the end 80s, really, because I think that's probably because I'm getting a bit older, and you know, I was going to work, and you know, starting to work. For me, I was starting work, so it was more about sort of
the beginning, isn't it?
Middle, you know, really that I can really resonate with, and really kind of that.
That's what I always say when I talk about it, and they'll say and when I mean the 80s, and I know that it's all of it, but I always think when it started to come into the 88 and 89, as much as I love Kylie Minogue, you know what I mean, I love her 80s stuff, and I really do. It's still 80s, but it's like you said, I think the Duran Durans and the Whams and the they all remind, and Adamant and all that, Adamant. And they always remind me of the 80s. You know, for me, they're and Kim Wilde in the 80s. You know what I mean? And all them sort of. And I think as we went on, it just got a little bit more techno-y, didn't it? And I wasn't that into that. I've got a sub question for that one. Also, do you have an all-time favourite 80s film? And if so, what? And why?
Alien.
Is it? The first one, or the second one?
Second one.
Second one's classic.
I just loved it. I mean, I've got two. This always kind of sometimes blows people's minds. I've got two favourite films of all time.
Go on.
So the first one is Aliens, and on the same par of that is Oliver from 1968.
Yeah.
But I can't choose. You know, if they were both on the telly at the same time, I'd be like, oh my god, which one? Luckily, we can
quite lucky
with them now.
Aliens, because
I loved it.
I think for me, I love the. It was Sigourney Weaver was just. She was like this, yes, and she was like, and she was this very I know she was very muscular, very bloke, but she was very hot. She was hot in it.
Yeah.
And
I used to find her I used to fancy her rotten. And perhaps it was subconsciously that she was quite
the masculine bit. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
but I loved the film. It was one of the first 18 films I went to see.
To watch.
But I kind of didn't really remember the first film that much. But I just knew
I
that
can't.
it was
The Alien.
quite iconic. Because I think it's probably because we were quite young when that came out. When that first came out.
Because that was quite earlier, wasn't it? It was Aliens came into the 80s, wasn't it? And I think,
and I remember going to the ABC in Basingstoke, because that's where I'm from, Basingstoke. And I was going to the ABC, and we queued probably for about 4 or 5 hours, because the queue was like right down the block. Because it was before the time of 10 cinemas, you know, it was one cinema, one show, and you had to wait. And it was the same when we went to watch Grease and Star Wars and all the Star Wars.
Grease.
For the love of God, you know, in the pouring rain, all round the block, all round by Bordells and Half-Life and all that.
Even though it's not an 80s film, Grease was one of the first movies I ever went to see in 78. I can remember watching. God, my mum must have been. How did she not know? Because when them songs were coming on, I was practically spinning around dancing to them, and she just.
Yeah, look at all the straight guys now; they all dance to it as well. Anyway,
absolutely, and I think and Aliens, that is an iconic.
Yeah, I love
it. I'm a bit like you. I've got quite a lot. I could reel them all off, but you know what I mean. I love The Breakfast Club. I love, you know, so much Grease. I love and all them sort of like 80s, like Mannequin with.
I met Andrew McCarthy and Kim Cattrall.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
and Kim Cattrall.
That was Andrew McCarthy, wasn't it? That's what.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought you said you met.
Yeah.
No. I was a little bit bitter then because I thought you'd met, but I got bitter when you told me about Pink.
I've met Pink. I met Denise Pearson as well.
Have you?
Yeah, I went backstage when I went to Butlins one year, and 5-star wasn't 5-star; they were only 2-star. Because 80s weekend, so I went backstage.
Yeah, I went to an 80s one with Kim Wilde. Oh God, it's got to be 20 odd years ago, and it was only 3 of them there, and the 5-star were there. But it was like, and I loved it, but I just wanted all 5 of them there.
Yeah. But now there's so many 80s films, so many. But yeah, Aliens.
Oh, do you know what? You couldn't. I don't think you could. There's just so. I mean, I've been watching so many of them at the recent, especially because I've been doing some movies. Because I did a podcast coming out soon with Karen about. We both chose our favourite movies, and I chose The Breakfast Club to talk about, and she chose Beaches. Yeah, that's what I'm at. So I said to Karen, you go first because I think it's going to be tears before bedtime. And at least if I can bring The Breakfast Club up, but it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
But there's loads, isn't there?
You could end it on Otto Kipling, couldn't you, I suppose? That's the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, I've got my last question on here for you. What does the 80s mean to you?
Just such a great time. You know, I loved being at school. I absolutely loved being at school. I did as well. I cried the day the official day we left. I really cried. I remember I used to leave home, in the morning, go up Ferry Road, cross the road into Fort Hill, where was my school.
Yeah.
And I just thought, these people I've grown up with, for 16 years, a lot of them, and I really loved them. I've gone all goosebumpy now thinking about it. School was just this group of people that you connected so much
with. Yeah.
And I've got a school reunion on June the 1st. It's our 40th. And we used to have one every 5 years. We used to have one every 5 years, and then it stopped. So the last one was 10 years ago. But for me, I don't know about yourself, Jay, but when I go there, it'll be like we were talking yesterday.
Yeah. And that is what.
Go on.
And that is what that sort of friendship is, isn't it? It's like you can not see someone for so long, but when you get back together, because you've got that one thing in common as well, haven't you? That you all remember, and you all. I love all that sort of stuff.
Some of them you didn't even know. Some of them I grew up from infants. For instance, and juniors. Where some of them you just met them at senior school. So it's only 4 years of your life, but 40 years down the line, you feel like you go and talk to them and it's like, oh my God, this is like yesterday. And Sarah Arnold, I'll still like have a go at her for turning me down, like, So then I'll be so glad because I'll be like, well, in the end, you didn't have a willy, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we don't want it now. I was just being nice. Or you could just say, my friend told me to come and ask you out. That's what they used to say, didn't they, when they were younger?
Yeah. My friend told me, no, what is it? I'm just saying, my friend wants to chuck ya. Did you say chuck ya?
Chuck ya. And you know what? I think for me growing up as well, because I always remember, to be honest, I was at school. When I was younger, I think I become less bright as I got older because I used to mess about a little bit more. And now I always think, God, why did you mess about? Why didn't you just take it a little bit more serious? I was a bit like the class clown at school, so I was a bit more, you know what I mean, like that. But I mean, I loved it, and I can't say, and I had some of the most amazing teachers when I was at school.
Yeah.
And I think that and for me, I always used to get lost in music growing up in the 80s. I think, that's what the 80s means. Means to me, because I was constantly in my bedroom, constantly listening to music.
The top 40.
Yeah. Oh, God.
I mean,
I used to get
it's a well-known fact, isn't it? We've all been doing the top 40.
Yeah.
With our little tape recorder, and do not talk, and waiting for you don't want that DJ to speak, and if your mum or your dad or your brother came in.
Oh my God.
Or my sister never came into our room, but
I was just upset, and it was like, and I think for me it was to get away. I got 3 sisters, so it was for me to get away. And I must admit, the amount of times my mum used to bang on the ceiling because I got the music too loud, or I was singing some or she'd like say, everyone can hear you outside. I thought, no, all they can hear is your mouth shouting upstairs at me. But
I loved it because I remember buying my mum's catalogue of Marshall Ward system, whatever you used to call them, like the old place. And it had a double cassette. It had a double cassette. I was like, my God, I've made it. I've got a double cassette.
I can remember my sister having the hump with me because I had a ghetto blaster, the old ghetto blaster.
Oh, yeah.
But I did have a double cassette on that, and she had a single one on hers. But and she used to have that. But then her speakers could come off, so she could like extend them a little bit. Wow. Not wireless like we used to. They still got the wire at the back.
Yeah.
But I always remember, and even now when you think about that, then on the street corners with these massive ghetto blasters, literally, and no one. I mean, people would have gone mad nowadays, wouldn't they? Because that sort of noise, but no one. I don't know whether they cared or it just wasn't that bothered. You know what I mean?
I didn't have one big boombox. I had friends that had them. And you just think you were so full.
Yeah, carrying this brick back in, because it wasn't. I mean, it were never light, were there? These, I mean,
until the batteries were always the big D size as well. The batteries were always the big Ds.
The ones that you said you couldn't afford. So once the battery went, you were up the Swanee unless you were staying at home. And he's trying to get the extension. Oh, I love the 8. I would go. I mean, I'm a bit like you. I do. School would be absolutely for me, and I enjoyed school, and when I was younger, probably not so much when I got older. I spent probably less time there, to be fair. But when I was younger, I was quite into it, and I loved all that. Yeah, I love the 8. I did love all that sort of school stuff. Yeah. That would probably
for me. I think because the school was so intense with all friends, and then sort of middle to a bit later, I was kind of then on my own as such.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's probably why I kind of sometimes forget about the latter part. Because I wasn't. I was kind of moving around and stuff, so it's like, oh, okay. Whereas the 80s at the beginning at school, I was with all these good friends who loved me, and I loved them, and whatever.
That I always think is like, as we get older, we have really close and a bit less friends. As when we're young kids, when we're kids like that, you have loads and loads, don't you, of friends, and you keep that. we keep that tight friendship. But as we get older, we have less. But we have some good friends, but we don't have like loads like them like we used to when we was
I mean, I don't
older.
know about you, Jay, but I mean, I've got Bruce, who I grew up with. Me and Bruce are 5 days apart. We're born 5 days apart, which I'm the bloody oldest, so he always revels in that. So he's the only real school friend that I've been, still in touch with now. But the rest, like I said, it's lovely. I meet with them every now and again. We still chat on Instagram, or sometimes they come on my lives on TikTok. Not often, but it's just, I love it. For me, at school, like I said, I was a school captain. I was a team captain.
Yeah.
I was friends with everyone. I was friends with the girls. I was really good friends with the blokes or the lads that were the hardest. I was friends with Smelly Kelly. Poor old Smelly Kelly. No one's talking Smelly Kelly. I
was one of those that like some people have cliques, because I don't like. See, I didn't have a clique. I used to just be one of those that could actually fit in to loads of a bit like what you've just said. I could fit into loads of different ones, and people used to say, "Oh, how can you speak to them? Why?" You know what I mean? So I used to just literally. I never. I'm like that now. I don't like ignore anybody.
No.
You know what I mean? Unless you've done something really bad to me, but I wouldn't ever. I mean, I might be one of them. I might be. Have no filter and be sarcastic as hell sometimes, but I would never do anything to hurt anybody, because I wouldn't. That's just not what I do it for. You know what I mean? But I just think, and I think growing up as a kid in the 80s, that's school and music was absolutely school music and Saturday night TV,
Saturday night telly. I don't remember much about Saturday night telly, really. If I'm being honest, I mean, I kind of remember.
Mine was like 18, Cannon and Ball, and
oh god, yeah.
You know, that sort of like, because we were talking about this, and I always think we were talking about how like comedians now. I mean, the comedians in the 80s were fucking shocking as hell.
I love them.
I do, and I love all that, and I always, it's like my lyrics when I do words don't come easy. When I first did that one, I was when I was first thinking about that, and I kept thinking, oh God, are people going to go a bit? And like when I did the one with Karen, when the song was called Jailbait, I mean, as soon as she said, I mean, she never told me what it was, because she wanted my genuine reaction, and she got my genuine reaction. And I kept thinking, oh, Karen. And then I thought, you know what? I'm pointing it out, because that's what it's about. Every other bit of my podcast is fun, and that's fun. It just depends what you like is fun. And as like I said to her, they were in the 80s. They may have been like, you know what I mean, not PC. It's like the one that's coming out now. We were talking about Money for Nothing by Dire Straits. That blows my mind, the lyrics in that song, because I used to shout them out in the street everywhere. But that's just, but you know what I mean? It's like everything else, you
can't judge what happened then.
No.
In those terms, can you? That's the thing. And there's so many 80s sitcoms. I mean, for the love of God, some of them sitcoms, no. I mean, it's still very innocent, but, Mrs. Slocum talking about her pussy, I mean, that's just the best, isn't it?
And it's like, what's that? Was it Love Thy Neighbour? I mean, that was just.
Well, I think that was more 70s, late.
Was that
70s,
more? Yes, it might have been late. So. Yeah.
But even
what's still, it? Alf Garnett as well. I mean, he was just.
And you had Jim Davidson doing Stalky.
We did laugh at it, and I just think
it wasn't just everyone laughed.
Yes, they did. So. And I just think I know you have to move on. I understand that, but I just think there's just nowadays. I always think there's just so many things you can't and cannot do, or I still do them. I'm not like that. I wouldn't say things like the racist stuff. I've never been like that, but I just think that comedy was just, yes, it was of a time, and you wouldn't get away with it now. But my favourite person was Kenny Everett, and I absolutely.
Oh, God,
and the thing is with Kenny Everett, even though he wasn't vulgar with it,
it was
just amazing, and it was the way he used anagrams and the way he turned his characters' names in it. I mean, that's clever. That's clever comedy, isn't it? And
Go on, sorry.
No, go on. You right?
No, I was just going to say. So he is who I started on sort of lip syncing TikTok on.
Oh, was it?
So him and kind of Julie and Clary, because I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do when I first joined TikTok. And I just thought, well, first of all, I thought I was going to sashay down the hallway to RuPaul's, and then I saw these like middle-aged men lip syncing to songs. I thought, oh no, that's not me.
Me, that's me.
Yeah. But I did the lip syncing to sort of Kenny Everett. It's more Cupid stuff. Because he's obviously a bit more.
I need to go and look at some of your older stuff on that.
That's at the very beginning, and Julie Clary and stuff like that. And then it kind of just evolved. But then it was so innocent, but so funny.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It wasn't innocent, and then exactly what they were saying, but it was just so funny. And
I did a revisit
as well.
I did a revisit and a react to. I've got the other Kenny Everett one's coming out, I think, but I did one the other day, and it's gone. I think it went out yesterday. I can't remember. It was a revisit, and it was only like a bonus one that I put out, and it was Kenny Everett as the Bee Gees. It was one of the most.
Yeah,
yeah. He was. There was all three of them standing. It was him, and he was interviewing them, and they were just singing their song, and they was camping it up like.
Yeah.
And he was just, and I just kept thinking, you forget how clever and funny he was, and you know what I mean. He was. Yeah, I mean, my dad used to love that's going before. He used to like Tommy Cooper and all that. That's a bit 80s, 70s, 80s, isn't it? But I just think that humour was, especially Kenny Everett's, it was a bit to the knuckle, but it was never vulgar and coarse. It was never that sort of like. It was never that sort of like. It was never racist. It was never. I mean, there'd be little bits of thing, but then it was every time, wasn't it? It was the 80s, and everyone I'm
sure Mary Whitehouse said something about it at one point.
God,
I'm sure she did, bless her. So,
do you know what that woman?
Loved it.
That woman used to infuriate me. Every time that woman come on the telly, she was moaning about something. And do you know what I used to?
I loved Doctor Who growing up. I loved Doctor Who.
Yeah. She was moaning about that.
She was moaning about that, and I'm like, what the? It's a bloody. She's nuts. Get her grip, But,
she was absolutely nuts. Absolutely right. But thanks. I'm going to love you and let you go. And thanks ever so much, Keith, for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
An absolute pleasure. And you are actually the first male I've had on. I've had my sister's boyfriend came on and did a duet with the first single podcast male, because I don't know why. I don't know whether I don't think some men are a little bit more nervous than women. Women love it. I've had loads of women, they're brilliant, but I just think some of the ones that you asked are just a little. I think they're a little bit. I don't know why, but they are a little bit.
You know what though, Jay? I think being on TikTok has changed me.
Yeah.
Especially in the last couple of years, TikTok's gone really, really mental for me.
Yeah.
I don't know how, I don't know why, but I think that kind of helped. I wasn't retiring anyway, but that helped me. So I've got no issue with it.
And you have to, and I think a lot, and that's what I think you have to be. I mean, I've never been. I was a bit more shy when I was younger, but not so much now.
Got your dog just open then. Dog's just coming, yeah.
He's come see you. Where is? Oh, look at him.
Hello, Wilfred. That's Wilfred.
How lovely is he? Oh, he's laying down now for a fuss.
Yeah,
bless him.
Do you know what it is? It's nearly 9 o'clock, and that's time for his wee.
To go out, that's what I'm surprised Mavis is not knocking on the door for me to go and take her out as well. Yeah. But I'll let you go so you can take her. But thanks ever so much for coming on, Keith.
No worries. And you know what? It's been a pleasure. No, it has.
And it's been brilliant. And honestly, thank you ever so much.
I appreciate it. I mean, I said ages ago I'd be more than happy to join.
Yeah. He was just trying to get time. It's just trying to get time, isn't it? Thanks ever so much. How amazing was Keith? Thanks ever so much, Keith. I'm going to get you back on again, because I'm going to get you back on and we're going to talk about some other stuff and get some other guests that would love to talk to you. So I'm going to get you back on. I'll sort that out with you. So that was me and Keith chatting about everything. How brilliant was he? Funny. Just some of the memories are great. This is why I love doing 80s stuff. So if you'd like to follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, go to YouTube and follow me and subscribe. And if any of you would like to be guests, even if it's just for a chat, even if it's to do the quiz 10 or where's ... don't come easier or my podcast chat, please get in touch with me. Have a good day, you beautiful lot.